Yes, as Shawn and I spoke probably earlier this month, we felt like there was a project that we were in the process of designing that you may not be aware of. It's on 113 between the river and Tate Lane. So the shoulders are extremely narrow on there, and it's pretty dangerous for cyclists as well as our plow drivers and anybody that uses the roadway. So we have commenced a project to widen those shoulders, and we just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. I probably won't advertise until next year because there are some environmental impacts to it that are going to cause us to go through some extra steps and kind of a lengthy process environmentally to make that happen. So we are planning to advertise it next fall, and it will be under construction in 2019 to widen those shoulders.
That's a Provo.
That section up on the map or not, but I think everyone knows where that section is, where it's really steep on one side.
I saw some heads nod as I explained where it is.
This is the next one we'll talk about. Provo River Parkway Trail map.
Okay. Just an update, I think we talked about this on the last meeting, was the Provo River Parkway Trail. It currently ends at the Vivian Park, and we actually met today. We're in contract negotiations with the consultant that we selected to do the design work. So we should have them under contract by the end of the month to start. And that one also involves quite a bit of environmental impacts that we have to study and provide solutions for. And so, but we have committed to have that under construction in 2019 as well.
Is there any way you could explain the map to us?
Oh, okay.
I mean, come on down.
Yes, I will.
And just kind of walk us through where's it looking good or bad, or, I mean, I would love that.
That's a big question.
Well, give your 5-minute tour of the map, please.
Walk us up the canyon, will you?
Okay.
You're on.
It's on. All right. So right down here on the, well, right now it's on the south end of the building here, is Vivian Park with our Udot shed right here. And right now the trail pretty much ends right here at the roadway, right where the parking is for Vivian Park. And our plan is to extend it all the way up along the south side of the river, all the way up and cross. We have a couple options on where to cross the river. Right now we have the existing railroad trestle bridge that Heber Valley Railroad would love to replace, and I think everybody would love to replace it if we can find the funds. We've kind of left that as an option as part of the design team, that we can add that in if we actually get the funding. So we're setting up the contract to be a phased contract so that we can design kind of what we can and get the environmental phase done. And then if we get the funding for the railroad trestle, we'll have them design that as well.
So tell the benefit of why that needs fixed there, the railroad trestle.
So
it's a huge safety issue.
I hit it in the canoe this year and it flipped over.
Right. Well, I've hit it.
I did too.
there are a collection of canoes and watercraft there.
Anybody who floats that river right now, to float it safely, you've got to jump out.
Yeah, you have to jump out right here, cross the tracks, and then get back on and float down the river, here.
So they're talking about doing a suspension type bridge.
Well, we have a couple options. I don't know if it's a suspension type bridge, but we have an option to do a combined ped train bridge right here.
So pedestrian on the same bridge. On the same bridge,
and that's our ideal one that we would like to do to help out with the safety concerns that are with that bridge for the water users as well as people maintaining it. This spring we had a lot of wood and trees and things that hit it, and it's really hard to maintain for the railroad as well as the county. And we have another option to just do a ped bridge kind of over here or even adjacent to the existing railroad. And that's part of what we're trying to do with the first phase of the project, is to kind of try to pinpoint where these should go We have some wetlands here that we need to minimize the impacts to the wetland here. And we also need to kind of provide some walls and things through this really tight section right through here. And so we're going to have to do quite a bit of work to try to get this through. It's kind of pretty complicated little section of trail, but it's the very end to be able to connect up to just below the dam. We already have an existing trail, so the point is to connect that all up.
You don't have the easements yet, or you do?
It's actually all, we did a project or a study that we were able to find out that we can put it all within UDOT's right-of-way.
Oh,
So that's why we're able to move it forward.
Oh, so that's new, that's good. And how many miles is that?
Oh, God, I think it's a little over 2 miles, but it's kind of the crux of the whole deal.
So when you get to the, I'm sorry, Mark. When you get to the double stack, divided road over here.
Yeah, it's actually starts just at the county line, pretty much.
So there's room between the
Right in
river
here.
and that drop off to put the trail in?
It's actually, so it stays on the other side of the river until it hits that bridge, the railroad structure, and then it would switch sides. We kind of have one drawn. There is room, but we have to build some walls to create a grade separation between the railroad and the road itself, our existing roadway.
So it would be on the same side as the...
Yes. And there may be, that's some of the things that we really need to decide and determine with the environmental phases, exactly where it's going to go, how we need to be very conscientious of how much money it costs and try to save as much as we can to get further up the road, because we're really tight on funds for it. We did it all with state funding rather than federal funding and county funds, just because it is more efficient for our money.
John?
Yes, of course.
So from the railroad's perspective, that bridge is really important, but the bridge, we're estimating, or I think you guys are estimating, it's around $750,000 probably for that bridge. And for the railroad, the bridge that's there is just fine to take the train across the river. The problem is, the real problem is, the serious problem is the users of the river. That's why the bridge needs to be replaced, not because it's unsafe for the train, it's because it's unsafe for the people on the river. And so it's a challenge for the railroad to come up with that funding and to make that funding its highest priority, because it's really a bigger issue than just railroad safety.
Was there any way to just mitigate that bridge for the users underneath instead of replacing it all?
No, because it's an old historic bridge
just putting
with pilings and...
putting in some kind of barrier so that people aren't hitting the actual trestle, but they're hitting a bouncy barrier, right? They bounce off of the canoes. No? Too narrow.
The problem is when you hit it, when you hit anything like that, the water just pushes you down and under.
Everywhere the pilings go, you could sink in an anchor and still do a suspension bridge. I mean, it's not like you have to take it out, it's just like you have to work with what you got and add the suspension, take the piles out.
And of course,
That's a simple answer.
it would have to be looked at and engineered and checked out. Yeah. So it's been there a long time, and it's, like I said, I know that we met with, I think it was Mike Davis, and he was talking about how we've gone out there to clean the debris that gets caught on the structure, and it's been kind of difficult to deal with.
Well, this year there was a couple of days when the water level was touching the bottom of the structure when they were letting so much water out of the dam.
That won't be any different with the suspension bridge.
Well, unless they make it a little higher.
Yeah, but the train don't want to take a hoop.
No.
Correct.
No,
So, I mean, it's
not
going to have to either inch into it and go down. So, I mean, it's...
Yeah, there are some engineering challenges with the project,
Yes.
to say the least.
Matt, let me talk to the Provo River water users, see if they would put any money into this.
Provo River water users. They have an easement through here, and I think this is actually shown right here. You see that comes in pretty narrow and then it goes pretty wide. And we have not met with them to ask them about that, but I'm not sure.
Well, no, they control the water in the river.
In the river to, okay.
So I've had a couple of phone conversations with them representing the challenge, the issue.
Yeah. Can you provide me that contact information? So yeah, just look, I'll keep coming to these and give you updates and let you know where things are at.
Matt, could I talk about our meeting that we conducted about 2 weeks ago? Mark brought the train down and gave a kind of a tour of the nice car that you had. I forget what you call it, the executive car? Thank you, business car. At Vivian Park, and we had maybe 30 people show up. 25, 30 people, a couple, 2 county commissioners, a state senator, and they were quite interested in the project. Most of them were homeowners in this area, and were interested to see what the plans were. They were concerned about the design details of it. Matt was a great representative of the project to describe the environmental process that we'll go through, that UDOT will go through. If we were to zoom out and look at this in the big picture, this has been the gap, is what we have called this for a number of years. A very difficult piece to solve, both financially as well as logistically with the railroad. We happen to have the right person at the railroad, the right person at the DOT, the right county commissioners at this point in time, right county council that are supportive of this, and all this money came together because of that amazing partnership. You'll be able to take a bicycle or walk and run this thing all the way from the Provo Boat Harbor on Utah Lake, or the Jordan River Parkway, or Murdoch Canal Trail, all the way up to the chalet at Wasatch Mountain State Park. And from there, we hope to continue on through Wasatch Mountain State Park.
So you can go from the point of the mountain to midway.
Yes. Yeah. This is very exciting for us. It involves moving the railroad track slightly, if I'm not mistaken, Mark. The agreement to do that, push it back, organize it in such a way that it doesn't hurt the railroad, but it's part of their regular maintenance and ability to move that line. So we're really excited about it.
2019, is that right?
$4 million budget.
What were the decisions after you made on the bridge?
I would say by next spring, probably April, May.
Who has a business relationship with Provo River water users or anyone that sits on their board? Okay. I love that idea of trying to work with them that way, so we'll follow up on that.
Suspension bridge is pretty spectacular and it'll look nice. Are there any old bridges kicking around that's carried trains over a wider span than that?
Yes.
Single span. Back east, I bet you have to haul it in, don't you?
There's one 5 miles from there.
The one at the bottom of the canyon.
Well, very unlikely to ever get that.
Well, if you dig it out, sandblast it, you'd have it. No, just curious. I mean, there's got to be alternatives other than brand new, spectacular looking suspension bridge. And you could even keep it rustic.
We've actually
bridge is maybe a little.
We have discussed that one at the mouth of the canyon. We've been eyeing it.
That's all the questions on this one. Then the last thing we thought we'd touch on is the bypass road, the Heber bypass study that UDOT has been able to organize some money. I think we have $200,000 on that study. $250 to relook at the alignment of the bypass, make sure we're preserving the correct right-of-way. You want to give us just a brief update on how that thing's progressing?
So today I was actually mostly doing that exact thing, was drafting a scope of work so that we can procure a contract or a consultant to do the work. And so I should have that done hopefully tomorrow actually, and send it out to MAG, and I'm not sure who, the county I should send it out to, and and I'll send it out to Heber City as well for review, to make sure we're getting what you guys need out of it, and what we need out of it, so that we can have a successful project. And so the time frame on that is once I get the comments back on that, I can send it out, and we should be able to have somebody selected by the end of December, or maybe even a little earlier, and then have somebody under contract in January to start that process.
And are you keeping the power company in the loop on this also?
That is part of the scope of work, is to coordinate with the utilities as well. And actually, Monday we have a meeting with the power company to discuss the alignment of their power line.
Matt, how is this study different from the one we've already done? Mountainlands done, or we hired a consultant at one time to do it?
So that one was a little bit, but it mostly focused on kind of the alignment, not necessarily what the intersections would look like. I think some of that's part of the issue that we're seeing right now, is that we're starting to get into the questions of, okay, at this intersection, what's it going to look like? We're getting developers kind of approaching the county as well as the city and wanting to know that information, and we don't have those answers right now.
So this would be a more detailed.
So this is a more detailed study, and also updated. See, back when that study was done, there wasn't a whole lot of development, and so, as in, there wasn't a lot of retail. Now we have Walmart, we have a whole bunch of other businesses that are more, people stop and purchase things there on the way to where they're going to recreate, whereas we didn't have that before, so people would just buzz through. So our traffic numbers are going to be a little different than they were before. And I think Kelly had something.
Well, that's what I'm curious. So when you issue this RFP, is it going to be, here's what we want, and we're thinking this is the route, or is it going to be, does this even make sense anymore? Because now the community's starting to say, does it even make sense to have this bypass that's just zipping out a little bit outside of our little city, or does it make sense to do something bigger? Is that going to be part of the
So
study?
the answer is yes.
Yes and yes?
Yes, yes and yes. So that is part of the scope of work, is trying to figure out what type of facility will meet what our goals as the county, the state, and the city are. So that's really what we're trying to do, is determine, okay, what type of facility will work to meet our goals with what we want out of the project, and if those don't make it, what is it going to take, and then does it make sense to actually go forward with it?
So after this study, we should have a good idea whether that makes sense, and we can stop buying property if it doesn't, because otherwise
Correct.
that's kind of silly.
And we should have a
Keep doing that
definite,
for 10 years.
this is the width of right-of-way we need. It's not going to be an environmental study where it's cleared environmentally to build, and this is the exact footprint of it.
Right.
But it's going to give us a really good idea of what we need to preserve, how wide, what those intersections are going to look like, what to preserve, and then I think, and from my previous experience on 2 other projects where we've done traffic studies like this, we have gone forward with an environmental document, or recommended them to go forward. And that is a whole other process, but at least that gives us a time frame of when we think it would be built. And how,
And then it can get on that list of projects.
Correct.
How long do you think this study is going to take? When will we see the finished product?
The traffic study should be about 6 months or less.
So
probably next summer, by the time it's complete.
We'll see it. And are you actually saying what I think you're saying, which is the route could be changing than what we've determined so far?
Well, the wetlands in particular, those, there's quite a few impacts that could happen there, and that is kind of a bit of a long story. I think basically it was just drawn on a map. This is kind of what we think it will look like, and so that's there. And I think the county has quite a bit of property up there. It's pretty wide. It's not, so there is a way to kind of maneuver that through. And
So are you talking about that northwest corridor right up into the North Fields?
North Fields, yeah.
So it may be changing a bit, but it's not like the...
Well, yeah, I think maybe, Matt, if I could just revisit what we did initially was we worked with the landowners in the North Fields to try to come up with an alignment that was agreeable to the landowners while we avoided as many wetlands as possible. From a visual perspective, we did not do any wetland inventory work. We did not consult the any sophisticated wetland mapping. I think this new study will take wetlands more into account, and we'll look at areas that we want to avoid or minimize or mitigate those wetland impacts, and while we still take into account the existing property that we've picked up, maybe there's a way we can avoid some additional wetland banking that we'd have to do, reduce the cost of the project.
And it will be a higher level, look at the wetlands, but it will not be, a definite, we go out and do a wetland delineation, take soil samples and things like that. There is a wetland inventory, and we have it in GIS. It's kind of a rough, this is where they can be found, but it takes further study, and that's where the environmental document goes. But we can get a kind of a broader footprint and a better idea of where it should go now.
Matt, I've always been concerned about the right-of-way that has been planned to go through the sewer farms, given that there's federal entanglement there and requirements. And I'm just wondering, how can we proceed with that supposed planning to go through the sewer farms back over towards the Walmart intersection? How can we do that without really knowing if we can get that land in the future?
That's one of the things that we'll have to look at in the study originally, at the front. But I think for the most part, it just follows the north side of that field going towards 1300 South. Mm-hmm. And then it pretty much kind of the conceptual designs and the ones that I showed last time I was here, where we showed that map and showed you the alignments. It follows Southfield Road. So that Southfield Road, that intersection, along with Casperville Road, that is kind of a complicated intersection that we need to look at as part of the study to try to figure out how to make that work and function with the traffic that would be going on.
I think when we talk Casperville Road too, it stops on its south to north termination, and the other is 1200 south going up, so there's...
It's 12, yeah, it's 1200. But
people have been telling me they're going to cut through Charleston. I said, I don't think so.
I doubt it as well.
Matt, got a question. I've heard that UDOT has kind of cooled a little bit towards this project, the bypass, because they don't think it's going to really alleviate that much traffic off of Main Street, maybe 15-20% is all. And so kind of based on that a little bit, right now we're what, ADT, almost 30,000. Your 2040 will be ADT, maybe 40,000, but then you think by then the bypass is built. So it's not going to take a whole lot of pressure off of Main Street. Talk to something about that.
So part of the study is to actually look at that as well. Just trying to figure out how much we think it will take off of Main Street and what type of facility would it take to actually make it worthwhile. And so that's pretty much what we're trying to look at is, we need to make sure our goals align with the county's goals along with the city's goals and be on the same page to be able to figure out, okay, is this what we really want? Is this going to meet what we really need it to meet? And does this make sense? So, because you're going to carry a lot more traffic if you don't have stops and you have great separated intersections. Or if you have intersections, what does that do? Does that drop it so that now that it doesn't make any sense? Those are the things that we're going to be looking at.
Maybe convenient, interesting shot real quick, man. 50% of the traffic goes from Provo Park City, so it's going to make it convenient for those guys. They'll just zip on through it. There's a concern, of course, as we know, the trucks, the oil tankers trying to get those to use it without going too far out of their way.
And this is kind of an inconvenient route for those people.
Address my question. It'll be a choice that will be made. We can't force the issue one way or the other, and if the choice is serpentine, you take the quickest route, oval, out through will be a no-brainer.
Would UDOT allow Heber City to make decisions on Main Street if we did get the bypass, and that way, UDOT will take over the bypass road as Highway 40, and we could actually lower the speed on Main Street to 20 miles an hour to deter the trucks from coming that way? I mean, would the state allow us to make some of those decisions locally? And because that would make a big difference for which way the trucks would go, is being able to alter those speed limits on Main Street.
So we have done, we have traded routes, so say, we have done in the past, built an alternate route and then turned over a state route over to the city. The only issue is I think we would consider that, but the problem is this is a U.S. highway, so it is under federal jurisdiction, so I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I'm sure we could, go through that during this study as well.
Great.
Figure out if that would help and make it, because I think that's a goal of the city and as well as kind of pretty much everybody in the valley is to make that a bit more attractive for the locals and also alleviate some of that traffic. So that's part of trying to set the goals and make a combined effort into making this what we really want it to be for everybody.
I did ask Terry Noel that same question a couple weeks ago, and she said there was a precedent in Lehigh, maybe? Is that where
Yep,
you've done
Lehigh,
it before?
the one I was referring to.
Yeah.
But it's a state route, not a
Right.
federal highway.
Right.
So that may complicate things, and I can talk to her about that and verify and get back with you if you'd like.
She made it sound like a lot of it would just be like if we were adding some additional, like if it took a lot longer time, or if it was causing a problem for the other traffic that they wouldn't be able to move as efficiently. But it sounded like there was some possibility there.
Yes.
Only because I live on River Road, do you think the bypass will alleviate the Provo to Park City traffic that currently goes through Charleston, Midway, and there's only one stoplight?
Yes. So my estimation is yes. Probably more than eliminating trucks on 40.
There's a lot of little hoopty-doos going that way, which, in my opinion, coming from Charleston, I'd rather hit a good long highway.
I'm not sure how many people actually take that route to bypass 40.
A lot in the morning, I can tell you that. Yeah.
Because I've wondered that myself if I was heading to Park City and wasn't going to actually stop by my house, which way is faster. And if you use like the app Waze, it doesn't take you that way.
Oh, really?
It takes you back in through Heber and on through the signals on up.
If you don't have the traffic of Heber would be the best way to go, or the bypass. But with Heber the way it is now, maybe that Midway route is picking up an awful lot of traffic.
The only reason I bring it up, it used to be only one stop sign here.
Yeah.
Now, if you make the light,
Now
you turn right on Midway Lane and turn left on River Road. There's no stops throughout the entire trip. So I mean, and they're going faster than they probably should be.
And when we actually model so basically what they do when they do the traffic studies, you take all these roads into account, where the people are coming from, where they're going, and you obviously put in the speed limits and things like that. And people find the shortest route time-wise to get from A to B.
Right.
And when things get congested, they start taking alternate routes. So this would be one of the routes that could be used to bypass the whole thing if it's really crowded, or congested. So that would be part of the model itself.